whatever you're enjoying to do, do it with passion. And that's another lesson I learned.
You have explained a little bit about it in your book, but can you just let this audience know that why you chose not to call it a memoir, but notes on your life and work?
My first reason for not calling it a memoir is the challenge of writing a memoir. I was not sure that I could measure up to that challenge. Because a memoir, you got to go from the beginning of your career to the end of your career. You got to give equal balance to all your entire career. Talk about successes, setbacks, hopes, and despair. I was not sure I could measure up to that challenge, so I wrote this as notes on my life and career. But as I thought about it, I realized how I could place it apart from a memoir, because a memoir is where the author is the hero of the book, and is the driver, and it takes the readers along on the journey. Whereas in notes, I tried to be a bystander, stand apart, tell my stories, tell my episodes, but be a bystander and let the readers make an inference for themselves. I hope those of you who read the book find that the book lives up to that distinction between a memoir and notes to myself or notes on my life and career.
How do you see chance in your life?
Yeah, as in this audience, almost everyone is in the middle of the career, at the end of the career. But if you look back on your life and your own career, you'll realize that luck has played a much bigger role than you think. Okay, if you consciously pay attention, luck has played a much bigger role in how your life and your career has evolved. There's a book called Drunkard's Walk. I don't know how many of you have read that, Drunkard's Walk. It talks about the role of chance in life. And more recently, there's another book called Fluke, again on a similar vein about what role chance has in shaping your life. So when AKB referred to my failed NDA bid, that's what he was talking about. I went to a Sainik school. I was one of the first batch of students to go to Sainik school in the early 1960s, and I went on a government scholarship. If you took a scholarship and studied in a Sainik school, you were enjoined to write the NDA exam. Of course, there were some students who faked it and failed deliberately, but I could not do it. I did my best, and I was number 3 in the country in the written test. And then when I went for the interview and the medical, they disqualified me because I had a congenital eye problem, and they said, you're not good for armed forces. So I'd come out and then pursued non-armed forces options. I ended up in the IAS and ended up as governor. Even my transition from finance secretary to governor is a matter of chance. A lot of people have asked me, how come you were in the IAS and you become governor? Okay? And as if there is some magic formula. If I tell them, look, it's just being at the right place at the right time, it comes off as false modesty. On the other hand, if I say that, look, it's a testimonial to my track record and experience, it comes as boastful. And so I nuance that response, and never to my satisfaction or to the other person's satisfaction. But like you said, luck plays a bigger role than we consciously realize. And that life story you mentioned, let me add a little more color to that story. Yeah. I was studying in IIT Kharagpur, a 17-year-old, 18-year-old. I took the Madras Mail to go on vacation. My friend was there. We were both traveling, and he had a reservation. His reservation was confirmed. I did not, but we were 17, 18 years old. So we said, we'll share a berth. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the TTE came and checked the tickets. And he said, you don't have a reservation, you have to get off. We pleaded with him. And he said, no, you have to get off. And we couldn't melt his heart. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, the Madras Mail stopped in Badrak. And I had to get out. And it was drizzling, pitch dark. I ran for my life. And the unreserved bogie was right at the very first bogie, and I ran in the direction of the train, caught that unreserved bogie, but I found that it was latched, locked from inside. And meanwhile, the drizzle became a rain. Lights of Badrak were flickering away, going away, and I was fighting for my life. Yeah. Like if somebody did not open the door, the train would have picked up 60, 70 kilometers, and I would have gone. Again, the role luck plays in your life. And here's the thing. When I became RBI governor, quite by chance, it was not planned at all, I adopted a village which is 8 kilometers from Badrak. Yeah. It's called Jalanga. In the 5 years that I was governor RBI, I went there 4 times. And, God willing, I want to go there once again. So like you said, I was flying into Bhubaneswar or whatever, and then driving that short distance from Bhubaneswar to Badrak. I was not going by a train, but the railway station had expanded and modernized. But every time I pass by the railway station, I go back 40 years and think back to that 2 o'clock in the morning episode
That's
and how
right.
I was saved by one kind old man.
That's right. That's right.
My interview, UPSC interview for the IAS was in early March. And Delhi, 50 years ago, even in early March, used to be quite nice, cold, and even at 9 o'clock in the morning, quite dark and damp. My interview was slotted first at 9 o'clock in early March. I was in IIT Kanpur. I took an overnight train, arrived in Delhi at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I went to my friend's house, changed, showered, pressed my new suit, wore it. My friend's mother gave me breakfast. I had that. And I was ready by about 7:45. Interview was at 9. And my father kept writing that, no, you shouldn't take a bus, because he was concerned that if I took a bus, my suit will be crumpled and all that. So he was very particular that I take a taxi. So I deferred to him once again. And so here, for the first time in my life, I wore a suit. For the first time in my life, I sat in a taxi, went to UPSC. I was there by 8:45, in good time. By 9:05 and 9:10, I was before the board. Chairman said, "Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. So, are you still studying at IIT Kanpur, Mr. Subbarao?" I said, "Yes, sir." "So when did you arrive?" I said, "This morning, sir." "When will you finish in IIT?" "Another couple of months, sir." "When are you going back?" "I'm going back tonight, sir." "Oh, just warming me up." That took about 45 seconds. And then he deferred to another member. That other member asked me, "Do you read newspapers, Mr. Subbarao?" "Of course, you as an IAS aspirant, you read newspapers." I said, "Yes, I do." "Which one?" I said, "The Statesman, sir." "So did you read this morning's newspaper?" I was flustered because I had not read that morning's newspaper. But the chairman came to my rescue. He said, "Look, did you read yesterday's paper?" Because the chairman said, "Don't ask him about today's paper." I said, "Yes, sir." "What was the front page picture in yesterday's Statesman?" These days, if I see a newspaper, I forget in 10 seconds what I saw. But that time, as a 22-year-old, I remembered. I said, "Sir, it is Muslims celebrating Muharram." "Celebrating? Is Muharram a festival to celebrate?" So I was flustered, second time in 1 minute. Then I said, I threw back, and then he said, "Muharram is not a festival. Muharram is a day for mourning because the Prophet's grandson was martyred. It is an occasion to remember him." Yeah. So I said, "Thank you, sir." And then he said something like, "You lived in Kanpur for 2 years. Kanpur has a large Muslim population. You should have known." Now, my immediate reaction was a bit defensive. So the IIT campus is very far away. I did not have a chance to mingle with the rest of the city. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I was so blanked out that I could not even come to my own defense. So I was flustered. Then he said, "Which sect of Muslims observes Muharram?" Then the chairman said, "He doesn't even know what Muharram is. Why do you press on that?" So in about 2 minutes, the interview by which I was setting so much store completely dissolved in front of me. And then I thought they would go through the motions of interviewing me for about 15 to 20 minutes and send me away. That'll be the end of the story. But in the event, the interview ran for 35 to 40 minutes, which was the average at that time. But what was more remarkable about that interview was that the level went up. We started from IIT and Muharram, but the level went up when we discussed Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Nixon's China visit, center-state relations, lots of other things. And then I had possibly the third highest marks in the interview. One of the lessons I learned from that, which was reinforced by several life lessons in the course of my life and career, is that the first impressions you form of people are often misleading.
Yeah.
And over time you get to know people better, and you should not jump to conclusions about people.
My name is Ajay Kaul, and I work with Mohit closely. We are both involved in FROB. He is, of course, the founder. My question is very simple, sir. We started by comparing Arjuna's, dilemma and his life with the way you have lived most of your working life. And I would go only to more when you were at very, very senior level, especially the Reserve Bank Governor. Which has been the single most Dharma Sankat moment for you, and how did you handle it?
In the mid-1980s in Andhra Pradesh, we had Chief Minister NTR. Some of you might know him. He passed away. He was very apolitical. He was a very different Chief Minister. And NTR was a prohibitionist. He did not drink himself. Not only did he not drink, but he had contempt for people who drank. And he was aghast. I'm talking about his first term. He was aghast that thousands of people were dying because they were drinking adulterated liquor. So he said, people have elected me, and lives and livelihoods are being lost. So in my state, my people cannot die of drinking adulterated liquor. If they have to drink, at least let them drink unadulterated liquor. And the solution was to bottle liquor and supply it. Government bottle liquor and supplies it so that people know that this is unadulterated liquor. They decided that. I was not part of that decision making. Within half an hour, I was appointed as officer on special duty for bottling liquor. And my first reaction was, why me? There were 250 IAS officers in the state, many of them with a formidable reputation for implementing field projects. I had no such reputation, much less reputation for building projects or plants for bottling liquor. And as I said earlier in this conversation, when you join the IAS, what do people say? I've joined the IAS because I want to change the world. And is this the way you're going to change the world? You're bottling liquor? And then you go to a wedding or you go to a function and people ask you, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm bottling liquor. Yeah? It's so embarrassing. So I was angry, frustrated, dejected. Why is this happening to me? I went home and brooded. Even as my time was running out, I had to implement the project in 9 months. And government had just appointed me and abandoned me, no support, no nothing. And then after 3 days, I said, okay, if this is what I have to do, I'm going to do it. It's better to do it and fail rather than not do it and fail. So I dived into it headlong. In the event, I completed the project 3 days ahead of the deadline. In all the 23 districts of the state, we had bottling plants ready to go. You switch on and everything staffed, commissioned, etc. It was a heady feeling because I really, as I got into the job, I started enjoying it. I learned many lessons from that. One of them was that you need to be pushed out of your comfort zone. Left to ourselves, we tend to be in our comfort zone, don't move out. But success comes, or learning comes from being pushed out of my comfort zone, and that's what happened to me. The second thing I learned was that, all of you must have gone to leadership seminars, you must have read books like Jonathan Livingston Seagull or The Alchemist. What did they tell you? That the secret to success in life is to discover your passion and pursue it. My life experience has been that that is wrong advice. Because in life, you don't always, and if you're in the IAS, most of the time, you do not get opportunities to discover your passion and pursue it. What you have to do is whatever you're enjoying to do it with passion. And that's another lesson I learned. That if your life's mission is to bottle liquor, do it with passion and professionalism.
This is Kiran Karnik. Dr. Subbarao, a little more personal question to you, taking off from the first question. You spent, more than 3 decades in the IAS. And the IAS, apart from being a steel frame, is a very hierarchical organization. And you were secretary and you were the big boss in government, but yet you had ministers, as you mentioned. And you came to Reserve Bank, and some of the ministers you dealt with were, sharp in more senses than one. Very intellectually good, also probably very arrogant. And you had, without intention, a bit of a run-in on the kind of thing you mentioned. And famously, the finance minister had to, in some sense, despite all your humility and your grace, you stood up to him and he had to say, I may have to walk alone. He admitted that. What was it that gave you that tremendous strength? Was it purely internal? Was it the strength of the chair? Was it a combination? Was it something else? Was it the passion you mentioned saying, no, this is good for the country as I see it, so I will do it. So what really got you, after years and years of being used to not necessarily taking orders, but having to follow a policy which somebody else dictates, to really push against a minister who was well known for being, as I said, strong, sharp, but also arrogant, and and yet doing that. And you were known to be a person of great grace. I've seen it, good fortune to see it myself, and under the radar, soft-spoken, and yet you stood up to him as few people ever would.
Thank you for that. But before I answer that question, I want to acknowledge Kiran Karnik, who was on the central board of the RBI when I was governor. So he and other board members guided me. I want to acknowledge that. Thank you very much. For your question, it's like there are, at least I know Krishnan here, who is another IAS officer, my colleague in the finance ministry. As IAS officers, we acknowledge that politicians are our masters. You can advise, you can counsel, you can stand by your advice to some extent, but you cannot go too far. As long as they're not asking you to do anything illegal or irregular, you have to obey them because they are the masters. As civil servants, we've been trained to do that. And then I became governor. It was a very abrupt change for me. In fact, I was finance secretary in Delhi at 10 a.m. one morning, and I was RBI governor at 10 a.m. the following morning. In 24 hours, a big transition. Right. Not just from Delhi to Mumbai, but from being an obedient civil servant to somebody heading an autonomous institution, or at least an institution that is expected to act autonomously. And I had Mr. Chidambaram was finance minister. I had regard for him. I hope and expect that he had regard for me. And we had our differences. Sometimes they came out in the open. Mr. Chidambaram himself had at one time said that if growth and inflation are both important, growth is very important to the government, and if we have to walk alone, we will do it. He was somewhat, I know the Telugu word for it, but I don't know how to say it in English, but he was somewhat expressing his displeasure and annoyance.
I'll put you in the list, man, and you should come. Nasiruddin Shahwala session. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah. So it was difficult, but then I was heading an institution, and I thought that my dharma was to do whatever it was. So I left it at that. I have no specific answer to your question. It's just that, you do whatever your conscience and your sense tells you. And my conscience and sense told me that this criticism is par for the course, but you have to do what you have to do.
Young people at all times, my time also, were told to be successful. And then you begin to admire yourself. And especially nowadays, all the time it's such a great guy, and you can be Elon Musk and be admired for all the wrong reasons. Yeah. So what is the advice you would give to even older persons like myself, but to younger persons certainly? How can you live the advice Arjuna was given by Krishna every day of your life? What is the practice of remaining like you are? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It will be presumptuous on my part to try and give any advice. But I just want to preface my response to your comment with this, that there's a book called Quiet. Mohit, you might have heard about it. It's written by a woman called Susan Cain. It's about introverts. But one of the things she says, which stayed in my mind, is that every human being has a character and a personality. We don't distinguish between them. We tend to conflate character and personality, but they're two different things. Personality is your ability to be eloquent, humor, wit, mixing with people, extrovertism, whereas character is truth, honesty, loyalty, courage of conviction, etc. Historically, cutting across traditions, not just in India, but across the world. Parents at home, teachers in school, even as you grow into a career, your mentors, your seniors, they're all focusing on your personality. I tell my children, learn to speak well. do whatever you have to do with integrity. But character you don't teach, right? You expect them to learn it from you. You don't say, never lie. Okay, you just expect them to learn from you. So we don't distinguish between character and personality. And I think that everyone must try to live up to their character and personality. But another response to your question is not just follow your dharma, but sometimes it is even difficult to understand what your dharma is, right? So it's very difficult, and I reflect on that sometimes. What do you have to do? I mean, if I know that this is the right thing to do, I'm not doing it, that's one dilemma. But if I don't even know what is the right thing to do, that's another dilemma.
Thank you, Mohit. We could have created the infrastructure, but it's you and your team and everyone and people over here who actually bring life and experiences over here. I can't say much thanks to Mr. Subbarao. I was graduating from ISB in 2006 while Professor Bhagwan Chaudhary, he was feeding us corporate finance, but very clearly it was the macroeconomy and the monetary policy. These were the, the buzzwords. I'm an engineer, and these are the things which he really looked out to. So, and 2008 onwards, every day in the newspapers, what was happening was quite something. It was a journey, and we looked up to you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the inaugural session here, and thanks to Mr. Shubhatacharya for a very engaging conversation. Thank you, everyone.
I think Aerocity is quite symbolic of the progress that's being made in the nation. I think if we have to be a global city, we have to have global infrastructure for culture, for entertainment, for families to come together. I think I love the place. Our family loves the place. So, lovely to be here today and just to see the additions that are being made. So, loved it, absolutely.
My experience at Aerocity has been great always, as I have been coming here many times. And when I come around here, I bring my families, and I feel that it is a place where I can just relax a little bit, catch my flight, come back, and again relax a bit and go back to home. It is great.
I had a great experience this evening. This great platform, Friends of Books, was kind enough to organize an event around my book, Just a Mercenary. It was held in this wonderful setting of Utsav in Aerocity. I had done several events on my books over the last couple of weeks since the book has been released. But today's event, organized by FROB in this setting, was different. Just the ambience, the atmosphere, the audience, the Q&A, the relaxing setting, the intellectual level was unimaginable. For me as an author, it was very fulfilling. I look forward to further events of FROB, and I wish them all the very best. And I wish Aerocity great experience in expanding intellectual activities such as this. Thanks.